Chen's team has hit 80 story points for the last 7 sprints in a row. The stakeholders are happy. The metrics are green. The burn-down chart is textbook. And Chen stands in front of the sprint review every 2 weeks and presents a picture of a team that is performing consistently and predictably. It is one of the most dangerous situations in Agile, because below the surface of that consistent velocity, something else is happening. The bug count has doubled over 5 sprints. The team's definition of done has been quietly narrowed to exclude regression testing on non-critical paths. 3 developers are padding their estimates by 30% to protect against mid-sprint scope creep they now expect, as a matter of course. And 2 team members have stopped raising quality concerns in planning, because the last 3 times they did, the team voted to descope the fix. Consistent velocity is not the same as healthy delivery. And the gap between the two is where technical debt, team burnout, and delivery risk quietly accumulate. Velocity gaming is not a conspiracy. Nobody sits down and decides to deceive the organization. It emerges gradually through a series of individually rational decisions made under pressure. A team that gets praised for hitting their velocity target learns that hitting the target matters. So when a story is looking too large, someone splits it. When an estimate feels tight, someone adds buffer. When quality work would push a story past done, someone proposes descoping it to the next sprint. Each decision is defensible. In combination, they hollow out what velocity actually measures. The 3 gears reinforce each other. Split stories to hit the number, pad estimates to feel safer, descope quality to keep the number achievable. Spin long enough and the team's velocity tells you nothing useful about the team's actual capacity or the product's actual health. Chen is not unaware. He has a nagging sense that something is off, but the metrics are green. The stakeholders are happy. And raising the issue would mean admitting that the velocity his team has been celebrating is partly manufactured. That is a conversation that takes courage to start, especially without a structure to hold it. The metrics are green. The delivery is not. TRIZ gives you the structure to say that out loud, as a team, without blame. TRIZ is a liberating structure that works by asking the wrong question first. Instead of asking how to improve your sprint, TRIZ asks how you would guarantee your sprint fails spectacularly. Instead of asking what you should start doing, it asks what you would do if your only goal was to make things as bad as possible. This is not nihilism. It is one of the most effective techniques in facilitation because it removes the social pressure of improvement conversations and replaces it with the creative freedom of a thought experiment. The disaster question. What would guarantee our sprint fails completely? What would we need to do, or keep doing, to make absolutely certain we deliver nothing of value, destroy team morale, and make our stakeholders lose faith in us entirely? This question always produces brilliant, specific, darkly funny answers. Because everyone already knows what failure looks like. They live near it every sprint. The question simply gives them permission to name it without anyone being blamed for it. Phase 2 is where TRIZ becomes genuinely uncomfortable and genuinely useful. You take the disaster list and you hold it up like a mirror. For each item, you ask the group, are we doing anything that resembles this? Not accidentally, not maliciously, just honestly. This is the moment teams recognize themselves, not in the extreme version of the disaster scenario, but in the diluted, normalized, everyday version of the same behavior. The team that would never deliberately game velocity sees, with some discomfort, that their story-splitting habit and their estimate padding and their quality descoping adds up to something that looks quite a lot like gaming. Phase 3 is the simplest. For each behavior you recognize in yourselves, you ask one question. What is the first step to stop this? Not a root cause analysis, not a process redesign, just the smallest actionable step to interrupt the pattern. That step becomes a formal team commitment recorded on the retrospective board with an owner and a date. Disaster list. Honest mirror. Stop doing. 3 phases, 30 minutes, and a team that can finally say out loud what everyone already knew privately. At the next retrospective, Chen does not open with what went well or what could be improved. He opens with this: I want to do something a little different today. I'm going to ask you a question that sounds wrong, and I want you to answer it as honestly and specifically as you can. He puts the disaster question on the board. There is a moment of uncertainty. Then somebody, the developer who has been on the team the longest, says, we would definitely keep splitting stories into subtasks whenever we think we might miss the sprint target. And the room shifts. Someone else adds, we would keep padding estimates by 20% and calling it risk buffer. Another voice, we would keep agreeing to descope regression testing when we are running late, even when the code touches critical paths. Another, we would avoid raising quality issues in planning because it always starts an argument we do not have time for. 5 items on the disaster list. All specific, all recognizable. Then Chen asks the mirror question. Which of these, honestly, do we actually do? 4 out of 5. The room is quiet for a moment, not ashamed, just honest in a way it has not been for several sprints. Then Chen asks the third question. For each of these, what is the one thing we could stop doing? Starting next sprint? Not fix, not redesign. Stop. 3 commitments. No story splitting to hit a target. If a story is too large, it moves to the next sprint as is. No silent estimate padding. All buffer is named and visible in planning. And no descoping of regression testing on critical paths without a formal risk flag raised to the product owner. 3 stops, all within the team's control, all startable next sprint. The sprint after TRIZ, Chen's team velocity dropped from 80 story points to 63. This is what honest velocity looks like. 63 points of work that was actually done to the agreed definition of done, with regression testing completed, with no silent buffer padding, and with no stories artificially split to hit a number. Over 3 sprints, the bug count in production dropped by 41%. Not because the team worked harder, because they stopped shipping work that was not actually done. The 2 team members who had stopped raising quality concerns in planning started raising them again. Their concerns were heard. 2 critical path issues were caught before they reached production. And Chen had a different conversation with stakeholders. He explained that velocity had dropped because they had been measuring effort rather than output. He showed the bug count data. The stakeholders did not push back. They asked for the TRIZ session notes. The most honest conversation your team will have is the one about failure. TRIZ gives that conversation a structure that makes it safe enough to have. Before your next retrospective, write the disaster question on a card. Not on the screen. On a physical card, or a sticky note, or a whiteboard panel, something your team can see and point at. The question is, what would we need to do to guarantee this sprint fails completely? Then let your team answer it. Do not lead the answers. Do not soften them. Just capture everything that comes up and sit with the list before you ask the mirror question. Drop your team's best disaster answer in the comments. The most specific, most recognizable, most uncomfortable one. The ones that get the most replies are the ones I will work through in the advanced episode on systemic anti-patterns and how to break them for good. In episode 7, we meet May, a Scrum Master whose sprint reviews produce great demos and 0 decisions. The team presents. Stakeholders nod. Everyone leaves. And by the next planning session, nobody remembers what was supposed to change. The fix is a 3-layer debrief structure that takes 20 minutes and makes forgetting structurally impossible. I will see you there.